Good morning, church. If you haven't noticed, I'm not Chad. My name is Amber Parkinson. I am a member of Richwood Church and have been for about 2 years now. And if you remember what Pastor Chad spoke about last week, it was proximity breeds empathy. And so we thought no better way than to learn what that looks like than to invite a couple of individuals that have real experience every day in the very vulnerable population of homelessness in Peoria. And so we have represented here the Dream Center, Pathway Ministries, and the city of Peoria. And so what we're hoping is that you will be able to listen to their lived experience every day in working with these populations and walk away with some really practical ways that you can come alongside either these individuals or other vulnerable populations in the city of Peoria so that we can be for the city, okay? Okay, so we're gonna start off, and I'll start with you, Andy, and we can just take a minute, who you are, what is your role, and how you're involved in ministering to the homelessness in our city.
Thank you. My name's Andy King. I'm the Executive Director at Dream Center Peoria, and been there for over 20 years now. And we have many different programs within the Dream Center, but one of the main ones is our emergency shelter for women and children. And so that's really our involvement, is looking at that demographic. So yeah, you'll hear a lot more. This is John.
I'm John Roque with Pathway Ministries. We are a gospel-centered ministry of mercy that comes alongside hurting folks and walks with them on a pathway from poverty to progress. And we have two main kind of avenues that takes. Our residential ministries, where we serve folks that are struggling with homelessness, abuse, addiction. And on any given night, we serve about 180 men and women in our residential ministries. And then we also have our community ministries of Empower Life Center and Pathway Counseling, where we provide counseling. And really, again, it's the same walk alongside that path for women and men, women that are struggling with an unwanted pregnancy, or women and men struggling with parenting issues or mental health issues. And so that's who Pathway Ministries is.
My name is Nicole Morrow, so I am the housing coordinator within the Community Development Department at the City of Peoria. About 4 years ago, the city created this position. It didn't exist prior because we realized that it's hard to solve something that you don't talk about. And so truly thinking about how individuals and families are impacted by their environment and the current housing conditions that exist, and then how can we do better, and how can we really make this more of a conversation amongst our policymakers to drive home a difference. Prior to that, I've been working for the Housing Authority, Phoenix Community Development Services, and the United Way, so always kind of having a hand in housing and housing advocacy.
Hi, my name is Christy Schofield, and I don't have much of a voice today, but I am Director of Homeless and Housing for the Dream Center, and I have done this for the past 30 years in one way or another. Been involved with these programs because 31 years ago I was sleeping in my car with my 2 children. They were 3 and 4 at the time, and so God directed my life in that time period and changed it, and I have been working these programs ever since.
Awesome. So we're going to have some direct questions for each of these individuals, and we're going to start off with Nicole first. From your perspective, how would you describe the current state of homelessness in the city of Peoria?
Yeah, certainly. and everyone here on this panel knows it. I just got picked to answer this question. Right, so we see homelessness present itself in many different forms, whether that is housing instability and folks trying to not enter into our homeless services. We have folks that are doubled up, right? So they're staying with a family member, they're staying with a friend. So we don't even necessarily know what they're experiencing, right? Because they show up in the places that we are. We have our folks that are staying in shelter. So you've heard from Dream Center, you've heard from Pathways. Then we have some folks that are unsheltered, right? They are staying outdoors for a multitude of reasons. And what we're seeing in the city, right, is that these numbers are growing. This isn't a new problem, but it is definitely more visible with federal court cases, kind of bringing it to light, policymakers bringing things more to light. But the simplest thing to know is that it impacts everyone. It's not just about housing, and truly these numbers are growing.
Thank you. So Christy, we'll go to you next. What are the biggest misconceptions the general public has about homelessness?
I think that a lot of people believe that people who are homeless are lazy and, you know, they're not working. But I'm going to tell you that being homeless is hard, okay? There is so much trying to get around. 98% of the people who are homeless do not have a working vehicle. So they are using bus transportation, going here, there. Sometimes it takes people 2.5 hours on the bus to drop off a child, actually get to a job. Also, I have so many employed people in the shelter. They're just underemployed. The cost of living downtown is such that it's very hard at $1,200 to $1,500 for a house, a 2-bedroom house. It's very hard to sustain that. At the Dream Center, we work on building self-sustaining families. That's very important. We don't want to create something where a year later it's not going to work. So we work and get them someplace that they can long-term sustain.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to have a question for all of the panel now, and we'll start off with you, Andy, for this one. But what do you see as the most significant drivers of homelessness right now?
Well, there's a few. Obviously, we just heard of economy, things like that. But I think it's a deeper root. I think there's a longing to be seen, to be heard, to be known, but also the longing for a father. And I'm talking about God. And I think that there's a longing in each and every one of us. And some of the things that we see, and Christy touched on it, the majority of the people that we see at the Dream Center aren't the folks that you may see on TV or that are in the encampments. Or our predominant person that comes into the Dream Center is a single parent mom with kids. It's a mom who has moved to Peoria for either a job or a boyfriend. And when they get to Peoria, one or both fall aside. They don't have the boyfriend, or the job falls through. And because they've moved to Peoria, their network is not here. It's where they came from. And so that's where places like the Dream Center step in to become that network. And so having people, especially people of faith, are in that network is critical to be able to then direct them not only to the services and to housing, but also to Jesus. He is the ultimate answer to anyone's problems, including someone that's homeless. So I think that is a significant driver.
Thank you. John, we'll go to you.
Yeah, I think we've talked a little bit about the drivers. I think they're so multifaceted. It's complex. There's never one answer. I think I have a question coming up about what's a typical story, and maybe I'll combine these a little bit and say that there isn't a typical. These are individuals, and we have to look at them in that way. But I would say we see kind of some common threads of what drive homelessness and these situations. And I kind of call them the AAA, if you kind of remember it that way. And the first one is abuse. My guess is, Christy and Andy, if I asked you, and Nicole too, we know that within our ministry, at least 90 to 95% of the women that we encounter have experienced abuse of some sort or another, and it's sometimes incredibly tragic, but it's very common. And even on the men's side, you'd be surprised how many of the men have suffered either physical or sexual abuse, and it's tragic. The other is addiction. Addiction, a lot of folks, I'm going to say a lot of us manage our addictions and can manage them, but sometimes addictions get out of control, and then they're ravaging. And when that happens, sometimes you lose everything. And so that's the second A. And then the third one is abandonment. And I use that term in a lot of different ways. Andy mentioned it. If you get here and you don't have a support system, you feel abandoned. Sometimes your family has to abandon you because of some things that are going on. And then our systems abandon people. Mental health is a big deal. And as a society, as a government, we haven't done well with supporting mental health. We need more residential mental health facilities to care for some folks who are really struggling with that. So, again, not a real specific answer or a general answer in the sense that everybody's different, but those three are big drivers that we see.
Thank you. Nicole?
I think a lot, and the reason I jumped from the nonprofit sector to city government is because a lot of what we're doing as nonprofits, right, there's amazing nonprofits. There's some amazing churches in this community, right? There's so many different players that are impacting this work. But if we don't fix the system that everyone is operating in, I mean, our goal probably unanimously across this panel would be to work ourselves out of a job, right? We don't have people experiencing homelessness. We have broken the chains of the AAA, right? That would be our ultimate goal. But until we actually fix the system that this operates in, we will never get any closer to achieving that. And so really, I see a lot of the drivers and how they impact individuals and families experiencing homelessness is because of those system failures. Whether that's not making enough at work, whether that is not being able to access appropriate health care, whether that is an old home that needs so many repairs that your Ameren bill costs more than your monthly rent, as the rent is also going up. And so there are so many components that could bring someone in to the doors of Pathways or Dream Center. And if we don't fix the reasons as to why people are showing up in the first place, we will always need these systems of care. And truly, like as disciples of Christ, right, it is our job to care for one another. So I'm not saying like let's get rid of the nonprofits and make this a human thing, right? But it is a human thing too. So I would say the drivers are really sometimes the situations that are out of someone's control and what stopgaps are in place to help someone recover when something does happen in their life.
Christy?
Okay, I think everybody said pretty much everything, but I do want to say last year we touched 1,300 women, children, and families. And of those, 96% had trauma, domestic violence, sexual abuse in their backgrounds. So what we're saying is we have to get to the root of the problem before we can solve it.
Yeah. Okay, So, another specific question for you, John. I know you answered this a little bit. I don't know if you want to add anything else to it, but when you think about the individuals you serve, what does the typical, quote unquote, typical story of someone becoming homeless look like if that exists?
Yeah, and I think we would all say it's funny because we just mentioned some big numbers. You know, Christy talked about 1,300, was it? And we see a couple thousand, and it's honestly, there isn't a single story, and that's because what happens is, and I say this a lot, and Nicole touched on it some, but I wanna even deepen it a little bit. When you think about homelessness or poverty as a problem, it's overwhelming. It seems unsolvable because then you get into this. It just seems you can't even touch it. But when you think about it as a person, one person that we can come alongside and help, suddenly that adds up to 1,300 people or thousands. But what you find is it's no longer. Sometimes you refer to folks as groups, right? We need to deal with the homeless. Well, that in and of itself is dehumanizing, because it's actually Fred, and it's Brian, and it's Susie, and it's it's a person, and we have to really focus it at a person level, because that's where we can make the difference. And we've all said all the different drivers. In the end, I think Andy touched on it. Hopelessness is what is really the biggest driver, and these folks need the hope of Christ because He loves them. They're made in His image, and we need to come alongside of them and find out who their name is, what their story is. It's always different. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay, Andy, you have the question next. What does dignity look like in the context of homelessness services?
I think if you look in Scripture, you see Christ as our example for showing dignity. Whenever He was around people, yes, there was a lot of people around Him, but He always showed the individual dignity. He saw them. He heard them. And it's so important because it changes your perspective from driving past someone or walking past someone to actually having the eyes of Jesus to be able to then approach someone. And I know it can be scary. At the Dream Center this week, there was a lady that I hadn't seen before, and she was struggling in a lot of ways, mental illness, things like that. But just me stopping and saying, "How you doing today? You doing okay? Can I pray for you?" It didn't do anything to me, but it did everything to her because I showed her dignity. And for us at the Dream Center, we have 3 core values: dignity, compassion, and purpose. And dignity drives us to compassion. Once you see someone, hear someone, even for us, the way our staff and volunteers treat people, the way the building looks, the way the building sounds. If you come into the Dream Center, there is worship music playing all throughout. Bringing that dignity to someone can then bring the walls down to then be able to show the love of Christ in real ways. So that's why dignity is a big deal, not just to the Dream Center. I know Pathway does it incredibly as well. You've got to see people, you've got to hear people, and you've got to be able to present Jesus when them walls come down.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to take several minutes for each of these individuals to be able to answer a couple of questions. If one is more impactful for you to respond to, but I'll just read some of these questions that may help shape what you discuss next. What role can faith communities, nonprofits, and citizens play? What should people understand before volunteering or donating? What is one thing attendees should walk away understanding today? What practical action can individuals take this month? And lastly, how can the community build a long-term culture of compassion and accountability? And so I'll just start off with you, Andy, and we'll move on down the line.
The role of the faith community is critical because what you bring, the general public may not bring. And that's being salt and light to folks who are in a dark place. When you read in Matthew 9 and 10, Jesus is about to send out the disciples. And in Matthew 9, he is entering a city, and his heart, it says his heart is turned to compassion. You have to be around people to feel that pull to be able to have compassion for people. And it really, really got to Jesus. And it says the cries of the city. He talks about the cries of the city. I know I've mentioned this when I've been here before, but it's something we live and breathe. Hearing the cries of the city is essential to be able to make a difference. And as you hear the cries of the city, you then go on to chapter 10 in Matthew, where Jesus is now sending out the disciples. He's sending them out, and it's not just to do good. It's to help heal people. It's to listen. It's to be able to be alongside people in their time of need. And as a disciple, it's one of those things that we can't really get away from because Jesus lived it. And so for the faith community, what you have is crucial to people's lives that we're dealing with each and every day. Let me tell you a little story. Just a few months ago, you may remember there was a pause on some of the benefits that were happening. And for the crowd that we serve, that's a big deal, right? A lot of people were concerned about where food was going to come from. And so the Dream Center did a food drive similar to what we did during COVID. And we collected all this food, and then we told the community, come and get it. It was over 1,000 packages of food that we had ready for families that were struggling. And this gal shows up to volunteer. I recognized her a little bit, but she was busy getting stuff. And then she asked one of our workers if she could go in the building, because we were doing this outside. This gal was about 15, 16, something like that. So one of our workers took her in the building, and this gal starts asking real poignant questions and asking for certain places in the building to go and look at. Our worker felt it was strange, but we're like, yeah, we'll go with it. So she's taking this young gal around, goes to the gym. She has to go down one of the back hallways, which was weird. Then she has to go in the youth area. And then she gets to the bottom of the stairs at the Dream Center. And if you've been to the Dream Center, we have these huge images of all different people that have been through the Dream Center. So our worker said to this girl, I've got to ask you, why are you wanting to go to all these different places? Like, not many people know about the back hallway and the gym. And she said, 4 years ago, I walked into this building with my dad, and we were both homeless. She said, I lived here for 2 years with my dad. And during that time, my dad got help and got a job, and she became part of our after-school programs that we have every day. And our main focus is to impact families living in poverty, starting with kids and youth. So we were able to take this gal who was homeless, bring her into the after-school program. She got involved, had a wonderful time. And the reason why she was wanting to go to the different areas was because it was different areas where her life had been impacted. She remembers walking with volunteers down the back hallway to skip the crowds to be able to get to the youth area. She remembers playing ball in the gym. She remembered doing Bible study in the youth area. And as the worker was listening to this, she was a new worker. She had not met this gal before. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. And like I said, they were standing at the bottom of the stairwell, and she turned to the worker and she said, "You see this picture?" She said, "Yes." She said, "That's me." And it was a picture we had taken 4 years ago. I mention all of that because what you do matters. It wasn't just workers that helped that gal. It was volunteers. It was churches coming alongside. It was pastors coming in and doing devotions. And now she is planning on graduating high school. She told us that she wants to go and become a social worker so she can come and work at the Dream Center because of what it did to her. That is what's so critical about people like you and in faith groups, in churches, being able to make a difference because you have the light and you have the salt to be able to make a difference in someone's life.
Well, it's hard to follow that beautiful story. It is, but you're gonna probably feel like you're getting piled up on because I'm gonna tell you the church is the key. The church is the key. We love Nicole, actually, and the work that the city has done is pretty significant for a city. They are really trying to step in. But government can't solve this problem. They can't. I love it that they can try to address the systems. That's really important. But it's the people that we have to touch, and the church is truly the key. And if you look at, all you have to do is Google kind of homelessness and the government's response in the last, and you're going to see that the dollars keep going up and the problem keeps going up. So something's not quite right there. And it's because we believe that poverty is not about a lack of material things. Poverty is the brokenness that we all experience in the four fundamental relationships of life: our relationship with God, our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with others, and our relationship with the rest of creation or work. And so that's just something that the church and the gospel can step into in a way that government just never could or it just wasn't designed to do. So it's the church is the key. And, I will tell you that the Bible's quite clear. Deuteronomy 15, take some time and look at that. Isaiah 58, take some time and look at that. And God designed his people to step into this because of the nature of what poverty is. If it's broken relationships, starting first and foremost with God, then it's going to be the church that really can make the impact on this. So, we talk about some practical ways to step in. It's estimated there's about 30,000 folks that identify as Protestant believers here in Peoria area. I think I can ask Andy pretty safely, we don't have that many donors. We don't have a half of those. I mean, we don't have close. So I'm going to just say, step in a little bit. Give a little bit. It doesn't have to be, we know it could be a sacrifice, but you're actually doing what Christ would want us to do. Step in. And then here's something really I like this idea. If you're shopping, if you're going to the grocery store, and we all know prices are up and everything's crazy, well, we all use some of those things that you're buying. Milk, eggs. We all get a lot of donations, but some of the staple items, we don't. That's just not available to us. So if you're buying for your groceries for that week, take your kids along and make 2 lists. Make our list and a list for Dream Center or a list for Pathway, and bring a gallon of milk. If 50 people bought a gallon of milk each week, it'd be amazing for what we could do and what we could do. So those are just some practical ways that you could step in and actually make a difference. So, and of course, consider volunteering. Amber mentioned that she's stepped into Pathway Ministries and doing life skill classes. So if you have a particular area that you have experience in, wisdom in, man, those are great opportunities to step in and do something direct and meaningful.
I love when you started this, right? And what was spoken last week about proximity brings empathy. Because I truly believe it's hard to hate up close. When I was 10, I had the opportunity to go to Russia with my mom with a group called Children's Hope Chest. And we were serving in the orphanages and running kind of like a winter camp, if you will. Think about summer in the wintertime. These are kids that didn't speak the same language as me, but I knew they were different than me. And it was a difference in what they didn't have and what I did. And so that brought me into social work and determining that kind of housing was the path to go. But I say that to say that, again, if you're getting to know the stories behind what's happening, right? Like, there are issues in the system. There are issues in policy. And those are really big things. But this is truly a human issue. And this is truly our brothers and sisters. And if you get to know their stories through volunteering, it will truly change your heart, and it will change some of the stereotypes that we all carry, whether we know that we carry them or whether we don't necessarily recognize that we do. So to me, I think that our Peoria is really blessed. We have an amazing nonprofit community. The church is also extremely blessed, right? Times, talents, and treasures. There are a lot of creative solutions that churches have brought. If you Google that, you will see churches paying off people's medical debt. You will see churches popping up tiny homes in their parking lot or creating a safe parking lot for people who are sleeping in their cars to stay in. There are so many things you can do no matter what your age, no matter what your abilities. And so I think finding a way to plug in, you don't have to figure out how to solve this yourself, right? If you already bring that you are the hands and feet of Jesus in every space that you go into, these nonprofits have a great pulse on the problem, and they also have a great pulse on the people and open doors. They will help guide the actions that you're curious about and the ways that you can get involved. So you don't necessarily have to figure out a way to solve this yourself. Look to those who are doing really good work, like the people you see on this panel. See what they're asking for, see what their needs are, and do that. They are truly asking for the things that they need. This is not excess, right? There's a scarcity mindset, but there really truly is plenty. And so if we can remember that there is plenty and that the actions of many can truly make things happen, that is the tangible you can walk away with, is that there is literally something that every single person can do. And you may not get to see your impact directly. Sometimes there's really cool experiences where you genuinely do see your impact directly at the time you're doing it. But sometimes it's stories like the one Andy told, right? Where that 16-year-old was just like a 16-year-old sitting out here, and we wouldn't know their story unless she had been willing to share it. So I think there's just a place for everyone to get involved. But I think a really big thing, if you're thinking about what you can do this month that's really tangible, low-hanging fruit, find a good book to read. There's all kinds of books, whether you're interested in the policy side of things or you do want to know more about the stories. They will help you connect with what's happening and truly see that there is a place that there's really not a whole lot of difference in any single one of us, right? Whether it's the privilege that allows us all to sit in this room today, or the folks that are at the Dream Center literally right now, or at Pathways literally right now.
Okay, well, I guess I get to finish up, but I'm going to make this short and sweet. I believe that we exist so that others can know the love and salvation of Jesus Christ. Jesus calls us to love God and to love our neighbors. For us, that means showing up for the homeless, the addicted, the mentally ill, the broken, the lost, and the forgotten. That's who Jesus came for, and that's who we serve every day. He is calling us to serve. He is calling you to serve. We would love to have you come beside us, walk beside us, whether that's volunteerism, donation, just praying for us. You have an open invitation. I'm sure you do at Pathways as well. Thank you for having us today, and I really hope that we get the chance to work with all of you.
So there's research that shows that when someone has something that's really impactful happen to them and they feel this calling to help out, that if they don't make plans to actually do that within 2 weeks, that it never happens. And so our ask for you today is to take a moment before the band plays and to just consider what it would look like for you to come alongside either these organizations or others in the Peoria area to use your time, talents, money, prayers to be able to step in and help this vulnerable population to be able to make a difference. We heard from this panel today that the churches are where it's probably going to be most impactful because we don't have enough dollars in the city to make that much of a difference as we'd like. So take a moment, and what can you do for you, for your family, to be able to come alongside each of these individuals and the organizations they represent to be able to make a difference for the city of Peoria?